Hey everyone, welcome to day 14 of the Spark Change Challenge. And today we have myself and Georgie um, on the stream. I'll try and keep the tail down so we don't get any not suitable for work situations happening there. But um, today is a much better day than Friday. Um, and in part, I think due to that emphasis on kindness, the kindness that I got from many of you when you spoke about having those ick days as well, and and partly because for uh, probably one of the first times I sort of made it my mission to remain kind to myself when I was dealing with that well, as RuPaul would say, that inner saboteur. um, and it made quite the difference. Um, so today's theme, kindness and nurturance, and it's the first of our week 3 posts where I thought it would be quite interesting to delve into what are some of the barriers when it comes to implementing self-care in each of these domains. And the one that I was thinking of in particular in terms of kindness and nurturance, I it made me think of this client that I worked with many years ago. Before I was I wasn't a psychologist yet. I'd done my undergrad and honors and all the rest of it, and I was doing masters. But I was working as a case manager for Anglicare, and I was working with the adolescent out of home foster care basically. But just for adolescents. And I I had this 14-year-old who had a 1-year-old herself, and a placement fell apart very, very quickly, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I had to find somewhere for this 14-year-old and her 1-year-old to stay over the weekend. It was fairly early on. I think it was maybe like 3 weeks into the job, 3, 4 weeks into the job, and I I was stressing, but I managed to find new foster carers who were willing to take her and the baby, and I went over to meet with them and sort of prep them and go through what the it was going to be a temporary placement at that point, what that might look like, and all of that sort of stuff. And I was struck by just how gorgeous they were. They were a relatively young couple, no kids of their own. They had some pets, and they were just really lovely. I dealt with all sorts of people back in that job, and they were two that really struck out as they're exactly the foster parents and the foster carers that we really want. And I was so thrilled that this 14-year-old and her child were going to have somewhere really safe, but really kind and welcoming. And so I delivered her and her baby to these guys quite late on the Friday evening. I think it was maybe like 6 or 7 o'clock, and then that was it. I said I'd check in on Monday, and um, by the time I came in Monday morning, there were all of these phone calls and messages. So she had left the placement on the Saturday afternoon. So there were messages from her. There was messages from the foster carers who were really, really stressed out and really worried about her. And she'd chosen to go back to uh, a different situation. And I just remember, I just remember being so stunned. And now I'm kind of stunned that I was stunned. But if I'm being kind to myself, I'll say that this was just a very new situation, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand about these barriers to self-care and kindness to self, and I didn't understand just how completely discombobulating and messed up and just wrong it would feel to go from a place where there was no kindness and no compassion, no care, no nurturance, to one where they were being just so welcoming and so kind. This poor kid just felt like they were like setting her up to be murdered in the basement kind of thing. She's like, There's something wrong with them. They're too nice. She couldn't fathom that someone would be kind to her or someone would be kind for no reason. And as I, as my training evolved and as I got more experience in that role, I came to see this as a recurring theme, that when you haven't experienced kindness and compassion, when you've lived in chaos and dysfunction, when you have not been given any good role models of kindness, and when the only kindness you have experienced has usually ended up in, abuse or being manipulated or being taken advantage of, then kindness itself can feel really threatening and really uncomfortable and just really wrong. And I've been thinking about that in terms of this challenge and the barriers that therapists in particular and healthcare workers face when it comes to being kind to themselves. Part of it, I think, sometimes is just general compassion fatigue. Like, we give so much kindness and so much care to our patients, our clients, and there's not a lot left over. Part is definitely that unrelenting standard that, you know, um, that we're never going to be good enough, that no matter how good we do this or how well we do this or how kind we are to everybody else, that it's not enough. And so there's no kindness for ourselves there, because we're always feeling like we're falling behind. But a part of it is also, I think, that we're really just we're out of practice. So it feels weird. It feels corny at best and completely threatening and uncomfortable and weird at worst. Um, Again, when you think about the types of people who go into, who become therapists, you do see a lot of self-sacrificing, unrelenting standards, and those schemas, um, those coping styles, they tend to come from environments where there wasn't a lot of kindness and compassion given. So, like any other kind of change, it feels weird. If you look at that video on the new neural networks, that any kind of behavior change, however simple, um, switching up the way that you put your shoes and socks on, switching up the way you tie your shoelaces, switching which hand you drink a cup of water or a cup of coffee from. Even those little changes is enough to create a little bit of pushback. So I think for a lot of us, being kind to ourselves actually creates just a lot of pushback of like, this is weird, this doesn't feel right, or I'm being self-indulgent, or if I take my foot off the accelerator, that critical voice is the thing that keeps me going. It's the thing that keeps me plugging along and being able to do for everyone. If I take my foot off that critical voice and allow some kindness and compassion I'll just collapse in a heap and there'll be nothing to motivate me to keep going. But to that I say, think about, I posted in the Tools of the Trade group today that photo, and yes, it's a photo of me. We're trying on some makeup and making a big old mess. And think about, and the reason I did that was because I want us to, if we can't think about being kind to ourselves without it causing discomfort, can we be kind to that inner child? Because that 2-year-old putting on the makeup is still in here, and how I would respond to her if she was my client, if she was one of my pets. Like, when I think about the how easy it is to show care and compassion to our dogs, to our cats, to all of our animals, even when they do some very, there's been some naughty stuff, but I don't blame them for that. I don't get mad at them for making, very normal, innocent doggy type mistakes. And I don't think we should get mad at ourselves for making very normal, innocent human mistakes. I think if we can respond to that inner child, or respond like we would to a client, or respond like we would to one of our animals, it can't hurt. This is not to say we go the other way and, well, I didn't want to go to work today and I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just going to stay in bed and stay under the covers all day because I need to be kind to myself. I'm not suggesting, that we go swing the pendulum that far the other way. I'm just suggesting that we give ourselves a little bit of a break. If you know, noticing our actual achievements, but being kind for the very human mistakes that we are going to make. I think that's I don't know if it's the linchpin to this whole Sparks approach. I'm still sort of figuring that out because they all kind of seem equally important, but I feel like the kindness is kind of the thread that links them all. That if we can make some inroads here, if we can create some real change in our habits, in how we respond to ourselves, then what can't we do, really? Um, you know, kids learn better in comforting, compassionate, warm environments. They learn better when they're rewarded for getting it right and just, redirected when they get it wrong. Why why do we think that we're any different just because we got older? Um, would love to hear what you think about this. Would love to hear if you think that I've missed any of the big barriers to implementing the kindness and nurturance aspects of self-care. But for now, I'm going to finish up, and my husband and I are going to go and check out the Barbie movie, and that's going to be our well, that was sort of our spontaneous and entertainment based self care for today, because we have not actually been to the movies since before COVID, and we used to go to the movies all the time. So this was definitely a habit that we fell out of and one that we're trying to get back into. So I'll tell you all about that tomorrow for spontaneity, but also talk about some of the barriers to that spontaneity. Have a fabulous evening, everyone, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.